Hello and welcome to another tutorial on Neoscore. Today we're going to be looking at notes, chords and rests, and the good news is a single class covers each of those, so we're just studying the one thing. We'll have a look through the documentation on the Neoscore website. We'll also have a look at noteheads and a colorization example from the Neoscore GitHub, and then finally we'll have a look at the API for chordrest. So this one we're going to just very simply rebuild this example that is here in the code, and I'll explain what's going on with that. So let's go into our PyCharm environment. So I'll just copy and paste this into here. Okay, so green, red lights, red lines are all showing up. We know what to do with those. So we need to go and get some objects and some methods from Neoscore. So the first thing that we need to get is from neoscore.core, we need to import Neoscore, or else nothing is going to work. The next thing we need to do is get some measurements and some points in space. So from Neoscore, these are core concepts, .core, .units, we're going to import millimeters. And the next one is some points. I think 0 and origin is mentioned there. So from neoscore.core, because these are core concepts, points in space, and we'll import origin, which is the top left-hand corner, 0, 0, x and y. And also we want 0, which is a single plane 0. Yeah, just makes it nice and clear when it's used as location properties in our objects. Now we've still got a couple that are showing errors, so we need to go and get a staff. This is a Western concept, so from neoscore.western we need to get a staff. We'll bring in the object staff, and also we need a clef. Obviously, if we're putting notes on a staff or chords on a staff, the staff needs to know, which clef it is working with, if it's bass clef or if it's treble clef or tenor clef or whatever. So from Neoscore, it's a Western concept .clef. Oops. .clef. We'll import the object, the class clef. And then the last one that we need is the chordrest. So this is the main object, the main class for automatically drawing notes and chords and rests by handing it a set of notes in a specific code. We'll cover that, and also some durations. It will automatically create all of the layout, all of the note heads, all of the stems, all of the flags, all the rhythm dots, accidentals, ledger lines, everything is all taken care of in this one class. So it is a Western concept .chordrest. We'll import chordrest. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do in our main code is initiate or set up Neoscore. Then what this is going to do, it will create my staff. Let's call it my staff. And it is a staff positioned in origin, so that's positioned in the top left-hand corner of the page. It has no parent, and it is going to be 100 millimeters long. Then we have clef, which is freestanding. So we can call it my clef in case we need to use it later on and call it up. And it is a clef. It is positioned on an x-axis, so 0 from the left. It needs to go onto my staff because I've renamed that. So it's going to be positioned on my staff, and it is a treble clef. Then the next thing is a chordrest. Okay, so if we have a look at chordrest, fetching documentation, you probably can't see that. It is wanting to, well, I'll tell you what, let's just write this out so we get to see the documentation. So I'm going to put my note equals chordrest, and then in there I need to put, as with most of the other objects and classes in Neoscore, it starts with a position on an x-axis. Where do I want it? Now what the example is saying is my staff, the inherent unit that is associated with my staff. Now a single unit is the gap between each of the lines. So it is saying, in this example, we are saying that we are going to position my note 2 units in from the left. So that's 2 essentially line spaces gap in from the left. And then we need to say, well, which staff? So it's going to go onto my staff. That's one I've just made earlier. Then I need to give it some notes. Now here we've given it 3 notes very specifically in a list. So that's those square brackets. If we're giving it a single note, we still have to give it a list. So I'm just going to use the single note and then we can explore that. And we're looking at C. We'll have a look at that in a minute, the code that needs to go around it. But I just want to show you this very quickly. And then the next one is the duration. And the duration has to be in a tuple. That's got to be in round brackets. And that is a denominator and a nominator. Never understand which way those round, but it is 3/16. So it's 3 semiquavers. So there's going to be a dot involved. Let's just grey this out for now. And let's just play that and have a look over. So run that script, come over to this side, and the mistake was mine because I didn't say show. Neoscore.show. There you go. Right, run that script. Let's get over to the other screen. And there it is. We'll zoom in on that. So as you can see, it's placed the origin just the other side of the margin. We have the treble clef as called, and we have our dotted quaver, dotted eighth note, 3/16. We've got the note, which we said was at C, and then we've got the beam and the flag, the stem, and the dot, because it's the dot. Okay, now if we wanted to, well, actually, while we're here, let's just have a look at the pitches documentation, because this is very important. It's interesting to note that it's based on a very similar string shorthand to Lillipond, so there's some cross communication available there, and it consists of 3 parts. There is a pitch letter, there is an accidental, and then there are some octave marks, all as strings, so in inverted commas, and when we put them in chord rests, all as a list in those squared brackets. So the pitches are standard A through to A, or C through B it says here. The accidentals are noted as F or B for a flat. So a D flat would be DF in strings. D sharp is either an S or a hash, and that would be again in strings, and we can have a look at them. N for natural, if we wanted to add the natural sign to it. SS or X, double sharp, FF or double B, double flat. The third component is the octave mark. Now, if we put a C without an octave mark, we are aiming for middle C. This differs from Lillipond's notation, but it just makes more sense for us to start. Middle C is just a C without any of the octave flags that are there. If we wanted the octave above, we would put a single flying comma. And if we wanted the octave below, we'll put a normal comma. So let's have a look at those. Yeah? Let's go back to the code. So at the moment, let me get rid of this and let's zoom into there. At the moment, we have just the C. Yeah? C in inverted commas or speech marks contained within a list. If we wanted that to be the C octave below, we would put a comma there. Let's have a look at that. There it is, C the octave below. If we wanted C the octave above, we would get rid of that one and we would stick the flying comma in there. Let's have a look at that. That goes back to here, and there it is. It is sitting on the second space from the top. And we see that. There you go. All right. Now, what happens if we wanted to change that into a crotchet or a quarter note in American? Well, we could then go into 1/4. So it is 1/4. And we can have a look at that, and that changes our C octave to that. Now, if we wanted to make that a chord, we can very quickly add more notes into that list. So for instance, using the example that is given on the documentation, if I just take that, copy that into there, we will have C, middle C, G in the middle C octave, so that would be the one sitting on the line, fourth line, and then we have E flat with the octave. So you've seen in there is the C, there's no accidentals, there's no octaves, the G, there's no accidentals, there's no octaves, we have an E, B for flat, single flying comma for that octave above. Let's have a look at that. And there we have it. All as quarter notes, all taken care of, all joined up. Now, if we were to put, for instance, an A flat major key signature on there and still call that E flat, it wouldn't know. Neoscore is not going to police that for you. It's going to have the two flats listed, absolutely fine, nothing wrong with that. And we can use that creatively as well if we wish to. Okay. So let's get rid of that and have a look at the next example down the page on the notation. We'll just copy that, bring it over to here into our code. We'll get rid of the stuff, everything in between the setup and the show, and we'll just paste that there. So what we are saying is there is, I'll call it my staff just for clarity. My staff is a new staff. It is going to be positioned on the origin, so the top left-hand corner. There's no parent, so it'll go directly onto the page, and it is 100 millimeters long. Now, all this clef is going to be positioned 0 on my staff, and it's going to be a bass clef. And because I've changed the name of staff to my staff, we've got these errors. So let's just change them. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 new chord rests. So there's going to be 6 new events. There is a position for each of them. So this first one is going to be 0 millimeters in from the left, the next one 10 millimeters, next one 20 millimeters from the left, all from the first position of the parent. So these are not 20 millimeters from the last one. This is 20 minutes from the start, 20 millimeters from the start, 30, 40, 50. And where's the start? The start is my staff. So the parent, it's all associated with the left-hand side of that. And the notes are all C. Middle C, notice there's no accidental and there's no octave indicator. And what this is experimenting with is different rhythms. So we have 1/4, which is a quarter note or a crotchet, 1/8, which is a quaver or an eighth note, 3/8, so that's going to be a dotted, 1/1, correct, semi-breve, 2, 1, breve, and then we have 3 128ths, which is a dotted hemi-demi semiquaver, I think, something like that. Anyway, let's just play this and let's see what comes out of it. Okay, so there they are at the top, all listed. We have the crotchet, the quaver, the dotted crotchet, the breve, the semi-breve, sorry, the breve, and then the dotted hemi-demi semiquaver, I think. Okay, so those are notes, those are chords, those are durations. Rests is exactly the same. And what we'll do is we'll go back to the code. What we'll do is we'll go back to the code and we'll manipulate the script that we've already got here. So a rest is just a chord rest without a note. So if I was to delete all of these C's and just present it with an empty list, we will get a whole run of rests. We can also just use the non-code as well. So let's put non in for these first two, and then the next four will be written as normal. So let's go back to the code there to Okay, so an interesting error has been thrown up on one particular line of the code, which is the breve, for some reason. So I'm just going to get rid of that just to move us forward, and all I've done is just commented it out. We're putting a hash at the beginning there. If we play this, then move over to this side, we now see all of those as rests. Obviously missing the breve there. I've made a note. Hopefully we'll kind of fix this before we move on. Okay. So what's interesting about rests is by default they will be positioned in the middle of the stave, but we can override that with this simple additional code, or additional property, which is the rest underline y. So the y axis adjustment of the rest only. So I'm just going to get rid of that, copy that in, which is just exactly off the website. There you go, you can see that now. I just got rid of all of the 6 chord rests and stuck the new one in. Obviously I've changed the name of staff to my staff. So my staff. So what we're saying here is there's a new chord rest. It's going to be at position 0, the X factor. On my staff, it's going to have, there's no notes, so it's a rest. It is going to be a crotchet or quarter note, and the property rest Y. So if it's a rest, move the Y axis. And what we're saying here is my staff has a unit value. Its units is a gap, the distance between the lines in the staff, and we are saying that it's going to go to -2. So if position 0 is the very top line, -1 would be the next ledger line up, -2 is going to be the next ledger line from that. So we can start putting in these flying rests. Let's have a look at that. What comes out of that one? And there it is. Zoom into there. There you have the flying rest. The next thing we're going to look at is 2 examples that are presented on the GitHub repository for this. So what we're going to do is just copy and paste everything but the first and the last line. That's because it uses helpers. And we are going to not. I'm going to just get rid of everything but the last line and then just paste that in there. Now the thing that we are going to need here is the Neoscore setup. Neoscore.setup. Oh, sorry, it's already there. Neoscore setup. And what has been included in here is an example of our own piece of paper. So normally it would go to default A4, but actually we're saying on the setup creation argument, the paper that we are going to put into here is, it's an object, so we need the paper object, and you can see that up here from core paper, and we've defined its parameters. So it's going to be 8.5 inches wide, 40 inches deep, and then these are the margin settings, so they're all 1 inch in. Notice we're using inches, not millimeters, for this one. And then we have this for loop, which is going to go through each of the note heads that are listed, predefined in the notehead tables. So if I hold down the command key, I'm able to click on that and it will show you all of the noteheads. So these are all of the standard noteheads, and underneath in green are all of the glyphs codes, the Smuffle glyph codes, which will access them. So we've got the square notehead, triangle up, triangle right, triangle round, moon shaped, standard with slash. I'm not going to go through each of those, and not every single one of them that is listed in the Smuffle repository are here as well. So there's more to play with, but this is most of them. And what's going to happen is there's going to create a staff. It's going to position the y-axis of the staff 18 or so points below the next one. So we're going to end up with a whole, kind of rows, lots of rows of staffs. We got the staff unit here, and a clef. They're all going to be, each one of these staffs is going to be treble cleft. And then on these, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 chord rests that are going to be generated at different points along each of the staff. They're all going to be C. They're going to be different note lengths by the looks of it, and they're going to go through the notehead table, depending on which point in the for loop we are through the master table that's listed in the script I've just shown you. So let's just have a look at that. Okay, so this is a big piece of paper. I'll zoom in to the top and we can see what's going on. So this one here is going to be the standard notation, the round dotted heads. The next one below has bracketed. The next one below looks like it's bigger and bolded. And then the next one obviously is bigger without bold. And then we've got the X's, the slashes, the triangles, and it goes all the way through each of them. The squares, we said triangle pointing up. We got the slash ones, tiny ones, clustered ones. So there's lots to play with there in terms of note heads, and you can call up whichever note head you wish to on whichever Smuffle glyph you wish to be using at the time. So, for example, let's go back to the code, and outside of this for loop, let's just make, well, let's just copy this. Okay, so here's a chord rest. Actually, I'll tell you what, we'll do it below, just so that we can see it. We'll put a chord rest in. It's going to need to be positioned somewhere, so we're going to position it, well, let's just position it at 0, as it's mentioned there, so that's the x-axis. Then it's asking us which staff, so we'll stick it on whichever staff is active at the moment. It's then we need a note, we've got to put that in the list, and in double inverted commas, speech marks, and we'll just call it a C. Then we need to give it a duration. The duration needs to be in a tuple in round brackets. So we'll say 1/4. And this is the bit that we're interested here, because we have these other options, including stem direction, break point, hook break direction. And the last one, the one that we're dealing with, is table. Now, because we're bypassing several other optional properties, we need to write in the table property equals. Okay, see that? Table equals. And then we need to go and get from the notehead table, the thing that we just had a look at. We need, note head tables dot. And this is where actually we can choose, you probably can't see it, but there is a whole list of options come up. So for instance, I know that slash is one of them. And if we were to run that, then we would be putting on the staff at position 0 a note C of 1/4 length quaver using the slash note head. Okay, let's go and have a look at the other example, which is about colouring. And this is over here. So this is called chordrest colouring. Let's only go and copy the first section, and we'll need everything but the first line. So let's copy that. Let's bring that over here, and we'll put that into our code. We'll get, let's just get rid of that. We'll paste that. So we've got Neoscore setup, we need that. And we've got Neoscore show, so we're going to show stuff, that's good. Okay, so what this is an example of colouring noteheads. So the annotation that's mentioned there is very important. Chordrest as a class and as a container does not have built-in support for pens and brush and for overriding colours. But as we've experienced with some of the other classes and functions, I think it was key signature. It was definitely time signature, actually. We can override the color of the note heads and other components such as accidentals and stems and flags, but we have to do it after we initialize it, or after we kind of instantiate that object. So what we're going to do is we're going to put some rich text, which is basically this, on the page. Then we set up a staff here, and we're going to set up a few things. So we have staff 1 is a staff. It is set up 10 millimeters in from the edge and 30 millimeters down from the top. Notice the position is a tuple, which contains an X and a Y coordinate, and we've gone back to millimeters, and they are 10 millimeters in from the left, 30 millimeters. The Y coordinate works from top to bottom. There is no parent, and it is 100 millimeters long. We have a clef that is going on to position 0, so far left, onto a parent, which is our staff, as you'd expect it, and it is a treble clef. Then we're going to stick chord rest, C1, which is a chord rest. It is positioned at 0, it is positioned 0, so no x-axis, but it's clearer than writing MM0, just by using the text version. It's going on staff 1. It is a C of no transposition, so this and no accidentals, so it's just middle C, and it is 1/8. And then once we've called that, so once we've instantiated this chord rest, which we are calling C1, we are then using some additional properties or some additional functions on C1, particularly the note head, because of course we can have more than one note head, it being a chord, so we could change multiple ones, which we'll do which we'll have a look at in the next example. And we are adjusting the brush, and the brush we are putting in there is a new brush, so obviously we'll have brought in the brush, there it is. And we're colouring it the hex code FF0000, which is RGB, so that is red. So it's full on red, nothing of the other things. So we'd expect to see this single note head as a red. Okay, so we also have, let's have a look at these ones. We also have some examples where we are putting in a chord. So here is a chord, C2. It is starting 15 millimeters in from the left. It's on our staff 1, and it is a chord of E flat G, B flat C octave higher, and it is 1/16 in duration, so a semiquaver. But we are saying within this chord, C2, note head 0, so this is now taken from this list. Position 0 is going to be the E flat, and we're going to change the brush of that to a brush FF0000, so that's a red. So the E flat in this chord will be red, but there's a second one, C2, so it's that chord rest. That's moved again, sorry. Note heads number 2, so this is 0 on the list, splicing, list indexing. This is 0, 1, 2. So position 2 in that list, the B flat, is going to have a new brush, and that brush is going to be green, I hope, if this is RGB. Yeah, let's have a look. And then here we have another one where we have C3 is another chord rest, a new one called C3. It is positioned 25 millimeters in from the left on staff 1. It is an E natural octave higher than middle C, yeah? And it is 1/32. But we are saying that for this instantiated object, so for C3, we're going to take the flag, not the note head. And we're going to change the, it's moved again. We're going to change the brush to be RGB blue. Yeah, 0000FF. And also the stem, we're going to change the brush, and the brush is going to be 0000FF. Now we can also, as an aside, we can also change this to shorthand hex. If we've got doubles like that, we can get rid of the duplication, and we can just have that 00F. Yep, RGB still. Okay, so let's play that. Go over to the other screen, and let's have a look at those things. There you go. Let's zoom in onto that. So as we said, the first one is just going to be a middle C, and we said we were going to change the note head to red. There it is. The second one was a chord, E flat G, B flat C, and we said we were going to change the note head to red and green. There you go. And then the third one was a single note at E natural, an octave above middle C, in the octave above middle C, and we said we were going to change the flags and the stem. And there you have that. So let's have a look at the API. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so here's the API that is down at the bottom of the neoscore.org documentation. Oops. This is the this outlines all of the functions and all of the properties and you know, kind of additional materials for used in the chordrest. There is a little explanation about what it also is automatically generating as a class once we give it the basic information. But it's here when we have the initialization that we have the setup parameters. Now, of course, position, the staff, the notes, and the duration are all essential. They're essential properties that we have to give it. We have to tell it which position, a horizontal position on the staff, its start, it will be positioned. We also need to tell it which staff it's going to be positioned on. We also need to give it a list, so square brackets, of strings. So these are the pitches that are in the speech marks. And we also need to tell Neoscore what the duration of it is. And these are all outlined here. So you are expected to put in your position X, your staff, your notes, and there is some other options in there as well if you wanted to experiment. After which we have the additional parameter rest Y, which we've already looked at. Stem direction. If you wanted to change the stem from up to down, then you can, it will automatically work out which one it needs to be, depending on the position on the staff, but you can override that here. And we've got beam break depths and hook directions that we can also alter. And then the table, which is the different note head that we want to use, and that is dictated by the duration as well. We also can call from a chord rest properties such as we can return back the list of notes, the list of note heads that are there. We can also it can call back a list of accidentals and ledger lines and dots. In fact, there's rather a lot of properties and also functions. For instance, what is the highest note head in the chord that we've got? What are the rhythm dot positions? In case we needed to use some of these parameters as controlling variables later on in the code. So let's just have a look at a couple of those by going back to our code. Okay, so we're here. I'm just going to grey out this one for now. And we're just going to make some space and we'll concentrate on this one, which has got a list of chords. I'll also get rid of the show because we don't want to render it. We're just interested in the console. So if we wanted to find out which accidentals were listed on this chord rest. So let me take chord 1 out as well. So we've only got, I'll tell you what, we don't need the annotation either. Let's comment that out. Right, so we've got a staff 1. We've got a clef on staff 1, which is a treble clef. We have got a chord rest that we've called C2, and we've changed the colour of 2 of the note heads, position 0, so EB, and the second position, no, it's not the second position, it is the third position, but it is labelled 2 because we could start at 0, 1, 2, the B flat. So if I was to call the accidentals, it is going to return a list of the accidentals that are used in that chord. I'm going to print that in the console. So let's have a look. If I run that script, it should tell us in the bottom here, there you go, it's returned a list of the accidentals that are listed. And these are objects themselves. So there are 2. We know what they are. They are the 2 flats. And similarly, if we wanted to have a list for it to return a list of the note heads, we could use the note heads function. And equally, that will return a list of the note heads that are listed. That are used in that, and there are 4 of them. And there's the 4. So we have 1 object, so there are 4 in the list, there should be 4 returned. Now if we wanted to go and get the actual pitch, to return the pitch of the first of those note heads, we could go back to here, use this list indexing function, and we could say, so this print C2 note heads of the 0, so the first one in the position, and pull back its pitch. And if we were to press play on that, it would give us the pitch information. There it is, letter E, accidental type flat, and the octave that it is there. And we can home down, because it's all object orientated, we can get into next object and the next object and the next object. Thank you.